Welcome back. While the music was playing, I zeroed it back out. One of the really unfortunate things about the model of calculator that I have here, the handy counter, is there's no way to reset it other than to roll through and get to $90 and then click the $10 space to get it back to zero. So I have it all set to zeros as we get ready to talk about a little experiment that my wife and I did. I wanted to see how accurately we could guess what our grocery trip was going to be, even when we had a predetermined list of what we were going to buy. So here's how the experiment went. I kept track of the groceries using the little antique mechanical calculator. And Amanda more or less pays no attention to what's going on the calculator. She's just making sure that we don't forget anything that's on our shopping list. Now, before we went into the store, we videotaped ourselves in the car guessing how much our cart was going to cost after reviewing the shopping list. And I got to tell you, when we were going through the shopping list, was trying to come up with a guess quickly, and I wasn't taking into account multiples of certain items. And my mind is still stuck in 2019 or 2020 dollars for what groceries cost, which was 25% less than what groceries actually cost now, according to official inflation numbers. Ever since we had our first kid, I have not been going to the grocery store as often. So, as a fair warning, before we roll the clip of Amanda and I sharing what we think the cart's going to cost, I way undershoot it massively. We are getting ready to hop into the price chopper. We've gone through the list and we have some preliminary guesses as to how much our cart's going to be. We're predominantly going to get stuff for chili and some other odds and ends. And Amanda's guess was
$57.
and I'm guessing 42 because it's the meaning of life. And we're going to be keeping track with this. At least I'll be keeping track with the little clicker, and Amanda's going to have the option to update her guess before we check out to see if we can get any closer. Okay, so I guessed $42. I'm going to tell you right now that's way under given what we were buying. And Amanda's $57 guess was running some of the prices of what she would normally spend at other stores. You see, we went to Price Chopper for this experiment, and we bought items that we would sometimes normally buy at Aldi. Aldi has lower prices for particular staples, and it makes a big difference. It adds up. So Amanda undershot her guess as well. Okay, I'm going to walk you through now how this grocery store trip went. Before we even got into the store, we acquired our cart, and I already got distracted by all the big, beautiful pumpkins and fall stuff that was outside the store, which was getting me in a festive mood that would, if I were running the shopping trip entirely, would have probably had me spending a little more than we did. Once we got into the store, though, we found the first thing on our shopping list, a red onion. I know there are a lot of strong opinions on what does or doesn't go into chili, but this was for a recipe that I wrote as we were entering a chili cook-off the next day. All right, we walked up to the red onions. I saw that it was $1.79 on the price tag. We put it in the cart. I clicked up to $1.79 and have already messed this experiment up. Because the onions are not $1.79 each, they're $1.79 a pound. Fortunately, the onion weighed a little bit more than a pound, so we went over and we weighed the onion, and I was able to get the clicker added up to what was roughly the actual cost of the onion. I felt so out of practice from keeping track of groceries because I used to do this where we'd weigh everything and we'd put our best guess into the calculator for what the actual weight was. And this whole weighing thing when it comes to the produce section does introduce a little bit of error so that your calculator is not going to be perfectly in line when you hit the register. Next, we went and got bananas. We weighed them and added them into the calculator. After the bananas, we found some bell peppers, which are priced per instead of by weight for some reason. They were $1.49 each. We only got one of those before moving on to the baby carrots. The baby carrots were $2.99, and it's at this point, since I have to mash now the cents, the 10 cents buttons each 9 times to do $2.99 before hitting the dollar sign twice, I really wished that I could have just rounded up and done $3. But for the sake of the experiment, I did $2.99 to try to be accurate. I know that the 99-cent thing at the end of prices is somewhat psychological so that we think that the price is smaller than if it were rounded up to the nearest whole dollar, but I have to wonder, was making 99-cent price tags or 98-cent price tags something to decentivize keeping track of things in the cart, making the addition more complicated? Or making the utilization of the little handy counter a little more complicated? I digress. The next thing we weighed was a singular jalapeno for the chili. The jalapeno was overestimated by 3 cents, We entered in 17 cents on the calculator, and later when we get to the checkout, you'll see that it was actually 14 cents. Okay, moving on from the produce section, we found some cans. We needed a can of tomato sauce. And tomato sauce, to my shock, was $2.59 for the can. This was something that when I was running through my estimate, I counted as $1. And if you're a little OCD, this moment was so satisfying. After putting the tomato sauce into the handy counter, it hit $14.00. All right, next we got a couple cans of beans for 99 cents each, and I really wish that it would have just hit the dollar sign twice, because in doing the 99 cents, the clicker jammed up on me a little bit. I got it to 15.98 with a little bit of effort, but the fact that this is mechanical as opposed to digital was starting to rear its ugly head. Either that or this particular one is just old and worn enough to have some issues while adding up. If I had one that worked a little smoother, I would actually like taking it to the store. And this is the part where I messed up the most. We got a packet of lunch meat for $5.69. And as I was going through adding that into the clicker, it wanted to carry a 1 twice over. So there was a 9 in the 10-cent spot, and I got the cents to the 9, and I tried to push the cent button, and it went soft on me. The whole thing jammed up. I have no idea how this happened, because I had been so diligent about being accurate up to this point, and I even had footage of what the calculator equaled prior so that I could get the number right. But I entirely spaced on the total value for the lunch meat and put us a whole $3 to $4 shy of where the running total should be. So if you're watching the video and you're like, oh, you messed up there adding that one. Yeah, this is the point where I didn't do the addition right. Okay, next we went to the meat section to get some stew meat. I really like when I make chili to take stew meat, chop it up maybe a little bit smaller, sear it up in a pan after tossing it with some salt and pepper, and then deglazing the pan with the beer before throwing that whole thing in the chili. And meat is a lot more expensive than it used to be. This one little packet of stew meat was $13. At least it was easy to add in the handy counter. Next is one of my secret ingredients for the chili, and that's a whole jar of salsa. Don't knock it till you try it, but that added $2.15. The next item on our shopping list was a packet of brown sugar. This brought our total on the handy counter rolling just over $40. And knowing how much was left on our shopping list, it was at this point that I realized I significantly underestimated how much we were spending that day. After the brown sugar, we were on the hunt for some cooking oil. There was some that was on the end cap of the aisle, but we walked right past it. End caps are coveted locations for grocery store stocking, and a lot of times what they put on the end looks like a good deal, but it's not necessarily the best value for you. So we went down the aisle to find all the oil and make sure that we were getting the most bang for our buck, and ended up picking out something that was not for sale on the end cap. I think we saved 20 cents. Rolling onto the other end of the store, we found the freezer section where one of the freezer doors was just left open. Sadly, this was the door to the ice cream, so we closed it to hopefully save the ice cream. Here's another example where I got the quantity well off in my estimation. We were going to get butter. We were going to get unsalted butter in particular. We don't like having salted butter because we want to control the amount of salt in our recipes. Now, there was a big sale on butter, salted and unsalted, but the sale tag only existed on the salted butter. So we put pause on the shopping trip while we dug through the sales ads to see if it was actually going to be the price on the unsalted butter too. I thought we were just going to get one butter. We ended up getting 3. And assuming the sales price was applicable, which according to the receipt I have over here, it was, each packet of butter was $2.99. I went through and double checked on the video, and yes, I added all of them up correctly on the handy counter. It took a lot of clicks, and this brought our running total to $62.37. Eggs were on the list next, another item where I didn't know the quantity. Were we going to get 36 eggs? Were we going to get 24? Were we going to get 12? I don't know. We ended up getting 2 packs of 12 eggs, bringing our total to $68.75. And this was a moment that made me sad because I still think of eggs, a carton of 12 eggs, as being less than $2. Next on the list was sour cream. $3.29 brought us breaking $70 for our running total. And that sour cream was the last item to go in the cart. I looked at the handy counter, and the total was $72.04 before taxes. On a normal shopping day, what we would have done is taken our total budget for that particular shopping trip, given our monthly budget, and divided out what the taxes were going to be in order to figure out what our maximum target is on the calculator. We didn't do that today. We kind of did it in reverse. for your entertainment. I looked at the $72 and was off by a whopping 30 for my guess, $30.04. That was sad, but I couldn't revise my guess because I had the total. Amanda could, though. This whole time she knew she was going to have an opportunity to revise her guess if she so desired. So I asked her at this point, how much do you think the shopping cart actually is? Somewhere along the line, she told me that she used Aldi prices in her head to try to figure up the cart and knew she was under. She thought about it, looked at the cart, updated her guess to $70, only $2.04 off from what the actual total was. And I sincerely was impressed. Certainly, if I had the opportunity to update my guess at this point, I still would have been under. I still would have been off. And I would have been spending a lot more than I thought I was, making it very hard to stay on budget. After taxes, the total rang up to $80.90. Taxes totaled $5.01, meaning that we were off by $3.85 total. That $3.85 entirely chalked up to when the calculator froze up at the lunch meat section and I failed to get the proper total for the lunch meat into the running sum. And that wraps up our little experiment using the mechanical calculator instead of what we would normally do, which would be taking a scientific calculator to the store or using the calculator on our phones. I didn't used to recommend the calculators on the phones to add up groceries because you couldn't go back in the history on the iPhone until a very recent software update at the time of this recording, which now allows you to go back and see if you hit multiply, divide, or subtract when you meant to hit the little addition button. Now that a running history of your mathematical operations is more commonplace within phone calculators, I think it's a wonderful way to keep track of what you're putting in the cart. All the same, if the buttons on this particular handy counter didn't get mushy when it was trying to carry the 1, 2 places over, I think this would be excellent. I would definitely consider using one if I had one of the addition subtraction sliders so that I could put stuff back on the shelf and correct for errors, and if it worked a little more smoothly than the particular one that I found on eBay. And I would have absolutely no shame taking one of these things to the store. But now I want to know what you think. Would you ever use a mechanical calculator at the store? And if you wouldn't, would you consider using your phone or a scientific calculator to add up your groceries as you're going? In fact, I'd like to challenge you because November is a month of overspending on food, most certainly with Thanksgiving, right? I want to challenge you to at least on one shopping trip, add up your groceries as you're putting them in the cart. See if it changes your behavior. See if it changes how you go about shopping. I sincerely stand behind this as my strongest tip to get your grocery spending in check within budget if it's something that continues to be over and beyond what you think it's going to be when you're drafting your budget at the start of the month. If you do go about this challenge, please come back and tell us how it went in the comments below. And until next week, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.